Hey, sorry, peeps on the call. I forgot about this. But welcome to, can you guys hear me on the call?
Yes.
Okay, so welcome to the last class of module 3. Today it's an exercise / work day. So let me share my screen quick. So for you three, I would just have all three of you on the call work together on it today, is what I would recommend. So what we are doing is a command line coffee shop. So obviously makes more sense for a coffee shop to be browser based, but we're still trying to flex our node muscle. So similar to how we did a library where it was a command line based library where you could add books and list books. We're going to do the same thing, but for a coffee shop. So you should be able to list the menu and then add items from the menu to an order. And then you should be able to check out with your order. So you may order like more than one thing. And then what we're going to do is make it really fancy where the customer can also ask for a recommendation. So please, like, what would you recommend to me today? And we're going to recommend based off the weather. So if it's currently really hot, you probably don't want hot coffee, but also you can use your imagination to decide what you want to recommend based off the weather. So you could base it off of temperature. You could also look and see if it's raining or something. So that's up to you. So that's what we're doing today. You will want to copy and look at code from the prior classes. So there's day 7 and day 5, the weather.js and library.js files are going to be helpful in particular. You will also need to sign up for the weather API, which is a good thing to get used to doing. So like constantly at work, I'm signing up for some API and getting my account and looking at the docs and getting a token and integrating that. So that'll be a good thing for you all to do. So that's all. I posted this in Slack, instructions for this here. Okay, and then I have the instructions are a little bit lighter on detail. So it's going to feel more abstract. And so you're going to need to kind of work through and figure out how you want to implement things without me giving you like implement it exactly like this. So a little bit more abstract this time. So you will get through to everything I just described. And then there's the last thing that's kind of difficult is you're going to, instead of using the current weather API, which is the one I've already shown you how to integrate with from the previous class, you'll want to read the documentation on the weather API for how to use the forecast API, which is like, it'll give you like, I think a 10-day forecast. And then basically you'll want to integrate with that and then suggest a drink for the customer in the future. So I want to, I don't know, reserve my coffee in 3 days. So you'll use the forecast to see what the weather will be in 3 days and recommend based off the future weather. Okay, so that's the main thing that you'll probably have time for to get through today. And then there is a bonus though that you can all do, which I need to teach a few things really quick to have you understand that. So we have used there's your friend. Good morning. We have used built-in modules. So when we were in the browser, we would use like the document module, which is built in. It's like already there for you. So document.getElement by ID is like always there. You don't have to install it or anything like that. It's just like a part of the browser. In Node, we've also used certain modules like the file system module to be able to read files from the computer or write to files from the computer. So there's like the built-in ecosystem, like what's just default available in Node and then in the browser. And then there's a shit ton of modules that other people have built. And those are called third-party modules. So like there's the programmers that work on the language itself and the browser itself and Node itself, but they are not, you know, as numerous as every programmer that exists out there. And there's this whole ecosystem called open source. So I'm sure, have you guys heard the term open source before? So that there's this huge ecosystem in programming of basically providing third-party programs for free. And so open source typically means free, and that you can do whatever you want with it. And now that's not, now there's certain licenses that come with different modules and it may restrict you from doing certain things with it, but most of the time you can do whatever you want. And so there's just a ton of things that you can install. React, for example, is what's called a open source framework or a library. So React is not something provided by Node or provided by the browser. It was something that Facebook developers or Meta developers created, and it's open source. Yeah. So like Angular and React and Vue, if you've heard of those are front-end open source frameworks. And then there's just a ton. So if you like, there's like a Medium article I found that was just about, it's a guide for how to build what's a CLI, which means a command line interface. So like when we built our library app that had us add books and things like that, that was a command line interface. So we often do interact with programs through the command line. You're usually just not ordering coffee through it. You're doing dev things through it. And so here is an article on writing your own command line interface, which is what we're doing today. And they kind of walk you through it, and they show you a few third-party packages that are useful for doing that. So there's third-party packages that people have written that make it easier to write command line interfaces. So they do things for you. For example, like if you want to have your command line interface be pretty, like to have like color and to have like boxes like this, for example, that just make it easier to read, there's a library for that. And the library is not in the language by default, right? Because like there's millions of packages and libraries out there that people have written. And so like it doesn't make sense to just like ship all of those with the language. And it basically, there's a whole ecosystem of packages that are available through something called the Node Package Manager. And the Node Package Manager, when we actually use it, it's NPM for short, that it comes with Node. So when you install Node, NPM is included. So you already have NPM on your computer, and you use NPM to say, hey, I want to install this package. So like the whole, like the hosting of all the libraries is done by NPM. So there's like a ton of libraries that are uploaded to NPM. And then like the way that you install them is also done through NPM. So you simply just say, if you want a package. So for example, if we want this like box package, it has a name. It's okay. The name of that package is called Boxen for whatever reason. And so you can look at that package if you wanted to. So this is the NPM website. And so like this is just where you can see what packages are available on NPM. It tells you a little bit about it and how to use it. And it also tells you where the source code is for it. So when something is open source software, it means you can also see the code, like it's open, the code itself as well. And so that's hosted on GitHub. So pretty much every library or framework or anything we may use will be hosted on GitHub. So just like our code for this class is on GitHub, other people's code is on GitHub. So the code for my work is on GitHub, though it's private, but open source software is always public. So we can go look at it. So here's the code for Boxen. If you wanted to see how it was implemented, you can do that. But then typically they'll have a README that shows how to use it and get going with it. So going back to this guide here, you can see if you want to use Boxen, then you just type npm install Boxen. If you want to install more than one thing at a time, you can. You just have to space separate them. So this command here is installing both Chalk or something, which is another library that makes things look pretty, and Boxen at the same time. So once you've done that, then you simply import it the same way we imported the file system package, for example. So remember, whenever we wanted to use the file system, which is already installed for us, we still had to import it. And we did that by doing const fs equals require fs. So to import and use something that you've installed, you do it the same way. You just say, const Boxen equals require Boxen. And it's just convention to, like, this is a string saying, hey, go find that thing I installed called Boxen. And then it's just convention to assign that to a variable with the same name. But you could pick whatever name you want. You could call it Schmoxen or whatever, it wouldn't matter. Okay, so that's the thing that we can do. We have some goal, we're trying to do something. Often somebody else had that same goal and wrote something that made it easier to do it. And so you can look for and find packages and libraries that may improve your program or make it easier for you to implement your program. And so as a bonus, so I don't think you'll have time to get to this today, but as a bonus, you can read through this article and try to incorporate Boxen or Chalk or some of the other things that are mentioned in this library or in this article to improve your program. So that's a bonus, but yeah, so basically, let me just show you real quick, like if I wanted to do that, so far, whenever we've written things, we've just made a file like library.js, and then we just run that file with node library.js. So everything we've done so far has been pretty simple, one file programs. Often a decently complex program will be multiple files. It'll have a bunch of dependencies, like third-party libraries and packages that we may install, and they may get quite big. So often there's like a specific way to organize things like that. And so we would do it in a folder. So I have a folder here that I made called npm example. And so I will put all the code and all the packages and everything in that folder. So I'm going to move into that folder with cd. And then if you are making something, we typically provide this sort of like description file that is like, here's the name of the thing, and then here are like commands you might need to run this thing, and then here are the dependencies that I have. So I added Boxen to my project, so I have to I need something that just like that says that that's a dependency. Basically, it's just helpful. So if you're doing like a more complicated thing, like not just a single file, then we'll make what's called a package JSON that describes the thing that we're making. And the way that you do that is this command called npm init. And remember, npm's installed by default for you, so you can run this command. And then this is a command line interface that's like asking me questions and walking me through setting up my package. And so it's saying here, what do you want your package name to be called? Is what it's asking me right now. And it's just guessing that I want it to be called the same thing as my folder that I made, which is usually the case. So I can just hit enter and it will use that. What version is it? Well, since I'm making it for the first time, we're in version 1, and so that's what it's recommending. And then what's the description? Example for class. And then what's like the entry point, meaning like what to start the program, what file should we use for that? Often people use index.js. So I can hit enter there. You guys haven't learned about testing, but you can like test your code by writing code that tests it to make sure it does what you expect. It's more of an advanced thing that we're not going to get to, but it's asking me what command I want to use for that. We don't need one, so I'm just going to hit enter. It will connect the package to the Git repository, but I don't need to do that either. And then we can add keywords and stuff like that for people to be able to search for it and find it. And then author would be me, but I'm just going to, and I don't know the license. Anyways, it's just asking me a bunch of questions. And then it generated this package.json. So a JSON file that is a description of the package. And so here that is, so I can just hit enter. And so that was just like a command line interface that asked me questions to then generate the package JSON for me. So now if we do ls to just list what's in this folder now, we'll see that there's now the package JSON that was generated for us. I can open this up and look at it, and it's simply just what you'd expect from that walkthrough that we just had. So name and version and description. I do not have any dependencies yet, so there's nothing describing that. But if I want to install Boxen, I can do that. So how do I install Boxen? Does anybody remember?
Install npm.
Yeah, so npm install Boxen. That's it.
Yeah.
And you hit enter, and it found that package, downloaded it. And often packages depend on other packages. Because, you know, like someone wrote a package and like somebody else wrote a package that helped them write that package. And so they installed that package. And so when you install a package, often it's then going to install like a bunch of other packages too. So Boxen is in total 19 packages. So they were all installed. And 11 of them want money from me. So, you know, if I want to donate. So I can list that if I want to. So that was installed. So if I hit ls, you'll now see that there's this thing called package lock. Don't worry about that. You don't need to know what that is at this point. And then there's a folder called node modules, which is all the packages that were installed. So the code for all the packages are in the node modules folder. So if I list what's in node modules, you'll see a bunch of other folders that are the things that were needed. So you'll notice Boxen is installed here. It's the name of the folder. But then all the other stuff it needs are also installed. So those folders are there. Now, when I did that, when I did npm install, it also updated the package JSON to say, hey, a dependency of this is Boxen version 7.1.0. Because like the Boxen guy or gal may change the code tomorrow. And if it just immediately changed my dependency that I wrote code against, it could like break my code. And so we have to version our software so that I can like choose to go to the next version when I'm ready to do so. Okay, so that's like you often are going to use other people's code. And when you do that, you're just automatically going to, like if I had not done npm init and had just done npm install, it would have actually made this package JSON at that point for me as well. So basically, whenever you're going to install something, you're going to see this package JSON come up, which is just like, hey, something was installed, so I need to document that basically. Because like I might delete or get rid of the node modules for some reason. So if I just delete node modules right now, that's the command to delete something from the terminal. Node modules is gone, but my program still knows that I need Boxen. So if I actually type npm install without any command, what this does is it looks at the package JSON and installs everything listed in the package JSON. So that's why it's good to have like a file that describes everything that you depend upon.
Do you normally, so if you have like. A folder, and then you have the index.html, index.js. Do you normally put the node modules folder, package.js folder, package.js? Do you put that like
At
on
the
the same level or
yeah.
within its own folder?
Same level typically.
Okay,
Yeah.
so not normally like in an npm dash example folder. You just have the node modules and all the package.
Well, so we are in the npm example folder, which is like the root folder for this package that we're making, right? So if we're making our coffee shop CLI, we'd have a folder called coffee shop CLI, and then within there would be all the code for it. And at the top level, meaning at the root of coffee shop CLI, you would have your package JSON, your node modules. And then typically what you'll see is somebody like might do a folder called source. And then inside source will be all the code specific to that you wrote, the source code of that package. So basically you'll often have just like if we look at that one package that we saw for Boxen, there's just like a ton of stuff at the top level here. So you can see the package JSON is it here. In this case, they don't have a source folder, so this package isn't that big, and so there's just an index.js. Here's all the code for that package for Boxen. This is it. It's everything.
So
No, but you'll notice they kind of import. So there's two different ways that you can import stuff in Node. One is like this: import the name of the thing from the string. And then you'll also see, const process equals require node : process. You'll see both. People prefer this style, but it's not the default style. You have to like customize stuff to be able to have it. So by default with Node, you have to do the require style, which is why that's what I've been doing. But when we get to React and we install React, like it will use this style. So we'll use the style once we get to React. But you can see it's importing all the dependencies that it has and it's using them in this code. So yeah, this isn't a ton of code, but it's like using other people's code. And so like, there's a lot of code involved, but not like, I don't know, like there's a lot of code, but like we're using other people's code and that code is like, so we're calling a function, but then from some other library, but then that function is a lot of code and that function may call some other function and that function may be a lot of code. Yeah.
So you said the import stuff is only for React?
It's for a lot of different things, like, but in React, when we use React, it will have, there's whenever we set up a React project, there's a CLI that we'll get that's like set up React project, and it'll like make all the files and things that we need, and it by default will set up the code in a way that allows you to import things that way, like the preferred newer way. That's not the default way. And a lot of other things do that too. So there's there's a huge ecosystem of stuff in Node, and React is just one of those things, though it's a big thing. But a lot of the other frameworks and libraries and packages that you would use to achieve whatever it is you're trying to program will often set up the project in that way too.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
So does React, do you use React in place of like jQuery or?
Yeah. Yeah, so no one uses, well, some people do, but if you're using React, you're not going to use jQuery.
Okay.
Most people don't use jQuery. jQuery is sort of dead. But like there's certainly code out there that's using jQuery, like old stuff that hasn't been updated. What'd you say? Bootstrap uses jQuery, yeah. And like maybe React might use jQuery, but you wouldn't use jQuery when you're writing React.
We do it directly. It's just kind
And I don't think I think React uses like basically the document, the built-in document module. That we like document get element by ID and all that was updated to be more like jQuery. Because jQuery was hugely popular and was like influential, and then they were like, well, let's steal that and add it to the main one. And so a lot of people just use the document module now. Because it's similar to what jQuery is after it had been updated. Yeah. And so I think React just uses the document library and not jQuery. Okay, there was a lot. But that is just to say, like, you can install other code and that's the command for doing it. And whenever we get to React, like we'll be doing that a lot. And so I just wanted to mention it. Yeah. Yeah, so this boxin repo, there's not much to it. There's just the package JSON and then the index.js, and then these other things are just sort of not really anything you need to understand, like config files and a license file to specify how you're allowed to use this. The MIT license, I think, is the most, you can pretty much do whatever you want if it's an MIT license, I think. Okay, all right, that's it. Now go back to, so for today, you don't need to do this npm stuff until you get to that bonus thing. So all you need to do is somewhere on your computer write a coffee shop CLI.js, and all your code will go there, and then you just node coffee shop CLI to run their program. Okay. What?
The second file.
This?
Yeah.
Terraform. Which is like a DevOps thing, yeah. Okay, sorry, let me go back to, okay, yeah, so here's what you're doing today. I posted it in Slack. And hop to it and raise your hand if you have any questions. Lily, Kenneth, and Jorge, if you all want to work on this together, I'd recommend that. I will stop sharing my screen and will mute myself and turn the volume off so you all can use this Zoom to go.
Sounds good.